The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering in-person and online graduate programs in public policy and data analytics. Admissions now open at umass.edu/SPP. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Ski Sundown in nearby New Hartford, Connecticut, offering bundled lesson packages including rental equipment and lift tickets. Online registration available at skisundown.com. Winter made better.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith. Later in the show, double your music, double your fun with a preview of the upcoming Back Porch Festival with founder Jim Olson and a conversation with Sunny Singh about his new project Sangat, who will perform at the Parlor Room in Northampton on Monday night. But first, I think we can no longer call these unprecedented times, but as wars rage on home and international fronts, we check in with the congressman for the 2nd Congressional District about the precedent of this week's goings-on.
I guess we should fully disclose that your office yesterday announced $12 million in new funding for local projects in the 2nd Congressional District, including $165,000 to help restore the Shea Theater in Turners Falls.
Yeah, that's a good day.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear so people know that when the Congress cut funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, that did actually affect my actual bottom line, potentially. This does not affect my bottom line in any way.
Yeah,
I'm the volunteer president of this nonprofit theater that the town of Montague owns. A lot of people think I own the Shea Theater. I do not, so put that all out there at the get-go. But Franklin County and Montague are grateful for federal support amidst the fact that everything else is getting cut in the federal government.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, time for our weekly check-in with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Congressman Jim McGovern, in a segment we call McGoverning with McGovern. We are amidst a major war, let's call it what it is, with Iran right now. Heather Cox Richardson was talking in one of her missives this week about how the Senate Armed Services Committee had a briefing, and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal from right down the street in Connecticut came out of that briefing saying he was as dissatisfied and angry as he's been in any briefing in the past 15 years in the Senate. He's left with more questions than answers, especially about the cost of the war. Are you getting similar briefings like this? And if not, what are you hearing about what went on in that briefing and what disturbed Senator Blumenthal so greatly?
Well, no, I've been to a couple of briefings, and it is frustrating. You leave these briefings wondering what the hell is the mission? What is the clearly defined mission that has prompted them to go to war in Iran? And you don't get one. How do they define victory or success? When do we get out of this? How is this going to make our country and the world more secure? And again, there are no answers. And also about the cost. This is costing us, I think we're over $12 billion on this war. And I was in Millbury yesterday delivering Meals on Wheels. And the bottom line is that what we've spent on this war so far could fund the Meals on Wheels program nationwide for the next decade. What we've spent so far is more than 3 times what Congress allocates per year on helping struggling seniors and low-income families with fuel assistance.
Your office posted a running calculator based on the Pentagon's preliminary estimates of the war from the Pentagon itself. And as of right now, it's at about $10.6 billion. But that is still a phenomenal amount of money if that data is to be trusted. So this is a huge cost in just a few days.
And that's not even getting to the loss of life, the American service members who have been killed. We're now finding out that many, many more have been severely wounded. And again, the administration is very, very careful not to allow any news that they don't want to trickle out to be made public. And so, things are probably a lot more worse than we even know. But I guess the question is what are we doing here? What is the whole point of this? And why now? And why, notwithstanding reports that there was progress being made again to get us back to a negotiated nuclear deal with Iran, the one that Trump walked out of, what prompted this? When you go to war, you ought to have a clearly defined mission, and this administration doesn't have one. I'll just say one final thing. Many of us remember what happened with the war in Iraq. George W. Bush did a big press conference with mission accomplished, one of our battleships. And it turns out that was premature because we got sucked into a war that cost us trillions of dollars that lasted many years. Iran has different motivations than we do. The idea that they would want to let this drag out for ever and ever and ever because they know it will cause pain on the United States. They know it will have a destabilizing impact on the global economy. They know that. It is in their interest to do that. And we have to realize that. This is a mistake, what Trump did. I think the war is illegal. He didn't come to Congress. Many of us are still trying to force a vote on an authorization for the use of military force. But I mean, with all that's going on in the world and with all that's going on in this country, this is where he decides to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars. This will not make us safer. This will have a destabilizing impact on the world, and it is going to cost us dearly.
One of the most disturbing reports that has come out this week has to do with the bombing of a school in the very early days of this war. On February 28th, the Tayeba Elementary School was targeted by the U.S. military. The Trump administration tried to say that it was Iran who had done this. Subsequent investigations found it was a Tomahawk missile. Only the U.S. and several allies, not Iran, have access to Tomahawk missiles. The death toll looks like it was at least 175 people, most of them children. What is the Congress doing about this report of this civilian attack in Iran in the very, very early days of this war?
Well, first of all, it's a war crime. I mean, it's a human rights crime. Notwithstanding the fact that the president keeps on saying, I don't know who did it. I think Iran may have done it. I mean, he keeps on pushing out these lies to try to divert attention from who's ultimately responsible here. But we're being told that the Pentagon was using outdated intelligence information that originally had this spot designated as a place where there were military operations going on in Iran. I guess this goes back years. And they never updated the information because it was a girls' school that was bombed. It is tragic. And when these kinds of things happen, I think for our own credibility, I think it's important to accept the responsibility and say, look, our country messed up here. But instead, we get all these crazy stories about how, no, it's not us. Oh, this is a conspiracy. No, Iran really did it. No, they're trying to blame us for something we didn't do. When almost every expert, military expert, and even those in the Pentagon are saying we did it. Again, this is what happens when you go to war without a lot of thought. Those who lost their loved ones in this bombing, this will be something they will live with for the rest of their lives, and they will blame us for that. And I don't think, again, that is in our long-term national security interest.
The human toll of this war in Iran is incalculable. The actual tangible costs are calculable, and we did mention that you have a running calculator about the extreme cost of this war, which is estimated to be about $1 billion a day. Meanwhile, several news agencies reporting that rather than losing the entirety of a defense budget, there were some luxury items that were purchased through the Pentagon, including, and these are the ones that are garnering the most headlines, a $98,000 Steinway & Sons grand piano for the Air Force Chief of Staff's house, $2 million worth of Alaskan king crab, $6.9 million worth of lobster tail, $15.1 million for ribeye steak. It almost makes me want to join the military if this is what they are being treated to. How are we allowing this to go on with a $1 billion a day war, with all of these luxury items, and with, as you've mentioned, you were with Meals on Wheels yesterday. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel to try to make sure our seniors have enough to eat in this country. One
of the reasons why I think it's important for the Democrats to win control of the House and or Senate is so that we can do oversight. The committees of jurisdiction that should be doing oversight of Pentagon spending habits just don't meet. There's no accountability. The Steinway piano at this exorbitant price, I mean, really? I mean, could you find a cheaper piano?
Steinways are expensive. We have one at NEPM, but you don't need a Steinway every time.
But it's like, I mean, with all that's going on, that's a priority. I mean, that's something that you want taxpayer dollars spent on. I mean, come on. I mean, look, Pete Hegseth has this exaggerated sense of importance and entitlement. So he's not shy about spending taxpayer money on things that, quite frankly, are not in the interest of our national security, but they're just nice things that he would like. Again, I find that objectionable. I think if Congress were functioning, there would be oversight hearings and there would be questions asked. It has to stop, and it won't stop unless there's some accountability.
You put a lot of your hopes in the midterm elections for this accountability. I will say that, both Democrats and Republicans have been in control of this Pentagon budget for years and years, and I don't know if it's ever come down, ever. So we should take that with a grain of salt, I think. However, there is an effort afoot that looks to many, like the Republican Party, is trying to, or at least the Trump administration, take control of the midterm elections with this Save America Act. Now, I know congressional Republicans are on a issues retreat like the Democrats were last week or the week before, and it seems like there is a little bit of pushback on the Trump agenda to push through the Save America Act, which would do a lot of things that would make it much more difficult to vote, including essentially ending mail-in voting. Senate Republicans are pushing back on this, it seems like. Speaker Johnson in the House and other top GOP leaders are also refusing to commit to passing this legislation with an election overhaul a third time through the House, I believe. Tell me what you're thinking about the Save America Act and its chances, and if it goes through, what it would mean for those midterm elections.
First of all, the midterm elections have already begun. Primaries have already occurred, and more primaries are happening in the coming weeks. So the elections have already begun. I look at this as Donald Trump trying to figure out a way to insert himself in the midterm elections in a way that he can say these elections were not free and fair if he doesn't win. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I worry that in the midterm elections, he's going to deploy Homeland Security and members of our military at polling places, that they're going to be randomly asking people questions before they go in to vote, asking for all kinds of identification, again, trying to intimidate people from voting, trying to keep people away from even going to the polling places. I mean, he's going to do everything he can to try to screw this up because he knows that he will lose a free and fair election. The polls are overwhelmingly against him right now and against his policies. People want to make sure our elections are secure. To the extent that there's any fraud in our elections, we know about it because it gets discovered. And the biggest fraud in our elections in recent years has not been undocumented immigrants voting in elections. It has been Republican lawmakers and influencers who have done things that have been illegal. They have been caught and they have been prosecuted, and some of them are in jail. There are people that try to illegally influence our elections, and we catch them, and we need to continue to do that. But again, this Save America Act is not just about showing a driver's license at the polling place. It is much, much, much more, including trying to eliminate mail-in voting. I mean, what about people who are disabled or people who are traveling or people who can't get to the polling places for a number of reasons? Their vote won't count. This is all about voter suppression. Donald Trump is not interested in the integrity of an election. He's not interested in free and fair elections. He's interested in about making sure he can hold power at whatever cost.
In this Republican issues retreat that I mentioned before, reports that are trickling out of it are saying that potentially the GOP should change its tone on immigration. We saw last week, after we spoke actually, I think, that former Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was removed. Is the tone changing when it comes to immigration because the American populace has seen the violence that ICE has brought to different communities, despite the fact that it seems in polling data that a large percentage of people, especially Republicans, still want any quote-unquote illegal immigrant deported? Have you heard a tone change from the GOP when it comes to immigration?
I haven't necessarily heard a tone change. I've heard a lot of concern by a lot of rank-and-file Republicans who are hearing from their constituents that this is crazy, what Trump is doing. Yeah, well, he promised to go after the worst of the worst, and he's going after families. A couple of days ago, I was in Dilley, Texas, with my colleague, Congressman Joaquin Castro, and some other members of the Democratic caucus, including Catherine Clark. We were visiting a detention center right on the border in Dilley, Texas, a detention center that holds mostly families with little kids. These are families that have done everything right. I mean, they've shown up to all their court dates, and then when one day they showed up and they were just whisked away and put into a detention center. We met with a family. Two of the kids were members of a mariachi band that actually performed at the White House, and these two young men were then put into this detention facility. After our visit, ICE finally released them, so that was a good thing.
Wait, did they perform at the Trump White House?
Yes.
So this wasn't like they performed for the Bidens years ago and now are in detention. This is they performed at the Trump White House and then were put in detention.
Yes. When Americans want a crackdown on quote illegal immigration, they're thinking of people who are doing bad things in our communities. They're not thinking of families. I met with a family from Russia, families from Venezuela, a woman from Cuba who was pregnant, several months pregnant, and she was worried that she's not showing. She's worried that her baby is not being developed, and the medical advice she got was to eat more. That was what she told me. Mm-hmm. And so she's very worried about the health and well-being about her baby. Again, these are not the people that even I think the most hardline Trump supporters believe are the problem. And yet these are the people who seem to be suffering the most. So we're spending $1 gazillion on detaining these people. Most of them have had jobs in our community, paying taxes or contributing to our community. And now, they are in these glorified jails. And it really is sad. But Republicans are feeling some pushback. As a result, they're trying to sound the alarm bells, but they haven't done anything. They're not bringing bills to the floor to try to address the excesses of ICE or of this administration, but they are privately communicating to the Trump people that, look, this is not working. You got to change your tone.
I'll ask you the question we always finish with, Congressman, despite all of the negative stuff that we've been discussing. What's giving you hope this week?
Well, I was at the South by Southwest conference in Austin, Texas.
Did your band play?
I was in before the music part of it.
I see.
Yeah, no, and we did a forum with the Chef Ann Foundation on school feeding programs, and what gave me hope was that there are a lot of people that showed up and followed online and are actually interested in making sure that our kids have access to better nutrition in this country. And I think that's wonderful, because I hope if we can change the makeup of Congress, that maybe we can actually do something meaningful and actually make sure that every child in this country has access to free school meals, and that the quality of those meals are such that it meets a nutrition standard that we all believe will help pave the way for them to grow up to be healthy adults. Again,
we could take some of the lobster tail budget from the Pentagon, maybe even.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, we all talk about how we need to, control costs. Nutrition and investing in nutrition at every level, and especially with our kids, but at every level up to our senior citizens, is a way to control costs. Because when people have access to good nutrition, they are less likely to get sick, they're less likely to develop chronic illnesses, and will be incredibly costly to our healthcare system. But there's a movement growing, and you can feel it and you can see it. And I witnessed that at this conference, and so I was really happy to be part of it.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts joins us each Thursday. If you've got a question for the Congressman, you can send it to us, thefab413 at nepm.org, and I'm happy to ask it. Thanks so much, Congressman.
All the best. Thanks.
On the way, 3 days, 60 artists across 10 venues in Northampton, we take a look at the upcoming Back Porch Festival. And next, a sonic blend of the sacred, the communal, tradition, and modern day comes to Northampton this Monday. We speak with musician of many facets, Sunny Singh, about his new project, Sangat. You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Dean's Beans Organic Coffee, a locally based, worker-owned company committed to social and environmental responsibility, roasting fair trade, organic, shade-grown coffee since 1993. DeansBeans.com.
And you say sick, not seek, right?
I do, yeah.
Or people should. One should say sick, not seek.
Yeah, it's not something that I would correct, but it is the right way to say it.
Yeah.
A lot of my people say seek too. It's a British thing.
With the English word sick, it makes sense that you wouldn't necessarily...
I think that's why the British were like, yeah, y'all are Sikhs now.
Yeah.
But if we look at English phonetics, that doesn't even make any sense. No vowel by itself is long. Why are we breaking our own rules?
Well, as we learn every week on the show, there are no rules.
Okay,
we have a Merriam-Webster editor on every week, so we always talk about weird stuff like that. Anyway.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Sunny Singh is a trumpet player and dole player, singer, songwriter, and educator activist based in Brooklyn, New York.
For the last 2 decades, Singh gained renown as an original member of the band Red Bharat, but in the winter of 2018, feeling a sense of despair in the wake of white supremacist acts of terror in the U.S. and the rising tide of fascism globally, he started returning to the Sikh devotional music tradition known as kirtan.
Sunny revisited some of the music he learned as a child and made short Instagram videos singing them and playing trumpet, dole, percussion, and harmonium. In 2020, he embarked on a solo career to explore bold new renderings of Sikh devotional music.
Afghan-American rabab virtuoso Kais Essar has joined forces with Sunny Singh and tabla player and percussionist Sukhmani in a new project that defies musical, political, and religious boundaries. The group's debut album is called Sangat, And Sunny Singh will bring that Sangat to the Parlor Room in Northampton this Monday, March 16th. Sunny Singh joins us now. Thank you so much, Sunny.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for that lovely introduction.
Excited to have you back in Western Massachusetts.
I think the last time that I got to talk to you was right around when you were doing some of this solo stuff. So how did this new project and this collection of musicians come as like a natural progression of that?
Absolutely. Natural progression is a good way to put it. In some ways, it feels like a deepening of the work that really all of us were already doing. This project was started by me and Kais, and Sukhmani recently came into it, which is super exciting. And Kais and I both, I think he would say if he was able to join us today, I think he's on a plane today, it is a continuation and deepening of what both of us were already doing. And for me, of course, that has been exploring and taking lessons from Sikh and Sufi and Punjabi ancestral wisdom and kind of putting it into our context today in the way I know how to musically. And for Kais, it's like the rabab, which is he's a master of this instrument. He's a virtuoso of the rabab. That's a 2,500-year-old instrument. And so when he plays it, you're kind of taken back in time. It very much transports you, but he doesn't only play it in a sort of classical way, right? He's very much a student of Hindustani classical music, but what is really unique about him is that he is a master of that style, but he also has released albums and albums of contemporary music driven by rabab that has chord changes. And so us coming together in this way was really special. And the rabab, that instrument, has a very special significance in the Sikh community. It was sort of the original instrument that Sikh devotional music was played on in the 16th century. Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh movement, was always accompanied by a Muslim rabab player named Bhai Mardana. Kais is Afghan and Muslim. And so in many ways, this feels like a 2026 homage to that very ancient tradition.
When we mentioned the instrumentation of Sangat, we mentioned tabla, which I just assumed everyone would know is a type of drum, but people might not know what rabab is. Can you describe the instrument rabab?
Yeah, so it's a lute instrument. It's a stringed instrument that is generally kind of plucked. For those who know Indian classical music, in many ways, it's a predecessor to the sarod. So it has these like sympathetic strings and then kind of the primary strings. I'm not really sure what those are called. I'm not a string player myself. I stick to horns and keys and banging on things. So yeah, it looks super cool. It has this like skin on the front of it, and it's wooden.
It's neat and it's ornate, and the sympathetic strings remind me a little bit of like kora or like other dulcimer style instruments that you find in the area. It took me a while listening to this album to realize that the things that I thought were guitar were rabab.
There is guitar on the album as
Okay.
well.
So maybe it was
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And that's also Kais. And on Monday, you will hear him play both guitar and rabab.
We're speaking with Sunny Singh, who's coming to the Parlor Room in Northampton this Monday with the folks behind Sangat. And we've been talking about rabab and how ancient of a traditional instrument it is when it comes to Sikh music. But you are a trumpet player or a horn player and play some other instruments as well. How does that horn or the trumpet factor into the history of traditional music that you are re-engaging with?
Yeah, well, there's a long history starting in about 2019. A guy named Sonny in Brooklyn who'd been playing the trumpet in a lot of different styles of music was like, hey, what would happen if I played some trumpet melodies to go along with this Sikh shabad I learned as a kid? And what if I put it on Instagram? Really, as far as I know, no one has done this before. And that's been met with a lot of different kinds of reactions because as open-minded and revolutionary of a spiritual tradition the Sikh faith is, just like every other spiritual or religious faith-based community, we have our dogmatic kind of conservative types in our community. And so some people are like, how dare you? Like, how could you do that? For me, it's not even like I had this grand idea of like, ooh, what if we put horns in Sikh shabads? It was more like, this is my musical voice, and I want to dive back into this rich tradition that is a part of my ancestry and I think has a lot of lessons for our world today. And so trumpet is just an important part of how I write music and make music and express myself. So it was very seamless for me, and the reaction has been kind of across the board, including super positive. But, you know, with Sangat in particular, we have gone to gurdwaras, which are Sikh houses of worship, all around the country and done kirtan in these spaces. And most have been very welcoming, super excited. The elders coming up to us just like in tears sometimes because they just see the passion behind it and it's unlike anything they've heard before. And then some gurdwaras have flat out told us no. And often the trumpet is a reason why, just because it's too out of the box for them. The irony is that harmonium, which I also play in Sangat and in my solo music, is not a traditional South Asian instrument.
Right.
The harmonium, which is a pumped keyboard instrument that folks might be familiar with and that white people love to play in their yoga classes too. Just to be real, I know I'm talking to Western Mass here, so you know who you are.
As the token white person on this conversation, I'll allow it.
Yeah. So harmonium, while it appears to be a very South Asian instrument, is actually a European instrument that South Asians adapted and is now very synonymous with a lot of South Asian folk music, devotional music. It's even in pop music. If harmonium is now normalized and okay, like every gurdwara in the world, you will see people doing kirtan with harmonium and tabla, then why not trumpet? Why not other instruments?
Let's stay on this for one quick second, because kirtan is one of those things that white people have co-opted, I think. And a lot of the first times I heard about it were like a bunch of well-intentioned hippie white people in Western Massachusetts getting together to
having a really good experience at a place and then trying to do it on their own without some anchor.
Yeah, not unlike yoga, I guess, if you want to think
Right.
a bit like that. But it is the Sikh devotional traditional music. So how does somebody who grew up in this tradition and now is blazing new trails with this tradition that you grew up with, what's your perspective on folks that are taking on kirtan or even yoga, I guess, as their own?
First of all, kirtan. So the A is like a
Kirtan.
sound.
Kirtan.
Kirtan. Yeah. So that's point one, is like these things take on a whole new meaning, including in their pronunciation. Sometimes Kais and I joke that we just start calling it curtain, like a
Right.
shower curtain, poking fun at the mispronunciation. It's turned into something else, and that's pronounced different. Just like a chai tea latte. That's something that does not resemble cha or chai, right? It is its own thing that's like syrupy cinnamon milk. So kirtan is the word Sikhs use, but it's beyond Sikhs. So in sort of like Hindu devotional and Bhakti devotional traditions, they also call it kirtan. So it's not just a Sikh thing. But I think there's a lot of like well-intentioned engagement and inspiration from these traditions, which I encourage, which I think is awesome. But when there is no South Asians in the spaces, and as Khalees said, no sort of like grounding, that's when it gets a little bit slippery, right? I think music should be shared. It always should be shared, always should be evolving. You can hear that in my own music. So, with Sangat, we haven't been invited to play these like white yoga festivals. I mean, obviously they're not explicitly white, but we know that is the reality of who's mostly there. Like, we haven't been invited to play at these sorts of gatherings yet, but we would if we were asked and they paid us well enough to be there, because I think it would be cool for them to hear the way we do it. And a part of what we do in our show, if you want to call it that, is also contextualize the meaning of what we are singing, right? Like, I'm mostly singing in Punjabi. Kais has gotten me to sing in Farsi a little bit too. Contextualizing what these 500, 600-year-old words mean and what they mean for us today, right? Because these words generally are centering ideas like oneness, right? Oneness ever unfolding, this idea that the divine is in everyone. And that's not just an idea, that's not just a spiritual idea, but that's a political idea. That means it is our responsibility to stand up for justice and dignity and liberation for each and every human being on this planet. And so that's a part of the experience. So I would absolutely love, maybe love is a strong word, but I would absolutely welcome an invitation to some of these wider kirtan festivals and do what we do in those places.
More with Sunny Singh as we talk about his new project and how he met his collaborators, Kais, Esar, and Sukhmani, the meaning of the group's name, Sangat, and his personal connections to Western Mass. After which we'll hear about some of the highlights of the upcoming Back Porch Festival with founder Jim Olson. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 and EPM.
We're speaking with Sunny Singh, who will be bringing his music to the Parlor Room this Monday, March 16th.
So one of the things I thought was really interesting about this album is that it is devotional music, it is like poetry, but it sounds like neo-soul. Can you talk about the feel of the arrangements that you made, especially because this particular combination of instruments I find really interesting, and I feel like there might have been challenges just in like volume in trying to balance out how everybody sounds when you're building these songs.
Yeah, I wish Kais was here to talk about this directly because he produced the album. I mean, I
cool.
co-produced it, but he was really the like engineer. I feel like the track that is the most directly sounds neo-soul is Khabaram Risida Imshab, which is a composition of his. That's I believe a 14th century ghazal by Amir Khusro, who wrote in Punjabi a lot, who also wrote in Farsi a lot. And so it felt so appropriate to do, because Kais's native language is Dari, which is very similar to Farsi. And so it felt very appropriate in terms of bringing out both of our whole selves to this album, to have at least one song in Farsi that kind of connects our traditions. I mean, me too, but Kais grew up on a lot of R&B and soul and put together this really, I've never heard anything like it, because it does on the surface sound like neo-soul, and then you realize I'm singing a Khusro poem and there's rabab on it, and then if you start counting, it's in 7/8. The instrumentation, the way we'll do that in Northampton will sound different, because it'll be driven by tabla rather than drum set, which we have on the record. My friend Mario Kalire from Ozomatli played drum set on it and had a great time playing on it. On an album, you can just do a lot, right? There's a killing bass player from LA on there as well, and we'll do it in our kind of stripped down trio way with Sukhmani holding down that 7 groove on tabla. But I think all three of us are similar in that we are very rooted in our respective traditions. Sukhmani is also Sikh, also a student of Indian classical music like Kais. And so at the show, you'll see them go fully into that universe, and I'll just kind of be like hanging out with them, but like they're deep in it. And then you'll see us go into the neo-soul world. We're all diasporic artists that are just making music in the way we know how.
And you're singing in Farsi, which is the language of Iran, and the United States is attacking Iran right now. You are a child of immigrants growing up in this country and bringing...
In the South.
The north of the South, in North Carolina. The music, that Sikh traditional music, is devotional, it is spiritual. And I'm wondering how audiences, that especially that are not of like a Sikh background, are reacting to when you're bringing this deeply spiritual and emotional music. What's the reaction been like?
It's been really, really powerful. I mean, I think the music is really accessible to non-South Asian or Central Asian audiences. We've played in many regions of the country in the last 9 months. There's always like a nice South Asian contingent, and often like at least a handful of Afghans, depending on where in the country we are. And then a lot of other kinds of folks that don't speak the languages I'm singing in, that don't necessarily have the like spiritual and cultural context for what we're doing, but that's a part of the experience, right? The music brings them in. And then I do a fair amount of contextualizing and explaining what we're singing and the history behind it as a part of the show. I hate to use this word, but there is an educational component to what we're doing. But I think the better word for it is sort of consciousness raising, right? And music is the vehicle. That's the power of music, right? Like Khalees hears the album and she's like, where did this neo-soul influence come from, right? So I think people are going to hear elements of things that they can connect to, even if they don't know a thing about Sikh devotional music.
But I don't think it hurts to contextualize it and be educational. And if you would, pull back the curtain.
Oh.
You can steal that joke, Sunny Singh, and use it with any of the white audiences that you play in front of.
You can leave it wherever you'd like.
I mean, this could be a way. I could just start trolling our playing for whiter crowds. The Western Man, I could just start trolling them with the mispronunciations and the chai tea lattes.
Pull back the curtain.
Stop drinking TT latte.
Yeah.
It's just chai.
Yeah, fun fact is I lived in Western Mass for 2 years before I moved to New York for grad school. So I know it all too well.
Where did you live?
But I lived in Amherst, and then I lived in South Deerfield. It was just 2 years. I was doing a master's program at UMass many, many moons ago. I was there during 9/11, in fact. It was a really wonderful place to be in many ways, because I did not experience racist violence there, but I experienced a lot of people wanting me to teach them yoga and spiritually enlighten them, and I had very little patience for that when I was 21.
Yeah. And I mean, people who aren't familiar with Sikh, you're wearing, do you call it a turban? You were wearing a head covering that a lot of people confuse for Islam, but it really has absolutely nothing to do with it. So in the moments of 9/11, when there was this rampant Islamophobia, many Sikhs were targeted, despite the fact they have absolutely nothing to do with Islam.
Yeah, and that's something we're obviously still very much dealing with. And I think it's really important to say that, and Sangat is very much a reflection of this. The point is not for Sikhs to just be like, we're not Muslim, we're Sikhs, because then we're throwing our Muslim brothers and sisters under the bus, right? The point is to stand in solidarity together and know we have to root out Islamophobia out of our society, and really all forms of racism and bigotry, because our destinies are all intertwined, including with our white siblings.
Yes. For everyone out here who doesn't necessarily speak Punjab, what does Sangat mean?
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
No.
Sangat means beloved community. In the Sikh community, it's a term that Sikhs often use to refer to the Sikh Sangat, or like a congregation in a Gurdwara, a Sikh house of worship, like the Sangat at the Gurdwara. We are very intentionally using it in a much more expansive way. Our Sangat is not defined by religion, is not defined by ethnicity, is not defined by nationality. Our Sangat is much broader than that, and these boundaries between our communities are porous. And that's the history of humanity. That's the history of South Asians. That's the history of the Sikh community. But we've strayed so far from it in these times of rising nationalism and authoritarianism in India, in the US, and beyond.
It's almost like the idea that the church is the people rather than the building. And I think a lot of people in other religious traditions tend to forget that as well. But maybe you can become part of the Sangat, the beloved community, when you come to see Sunny sing and the rest of the band this Monday, March 16th at the Parlor Room in Northampton, coming back to your old haunts.
You are coming back in April to do a retreat in Stockbridge in the Berkshires. What is that retreat about?
Yeah, so this is directly connected to this collaboration with Valerie Kaur, who I mentioned before, right? Incredible public thinker, spiritual leader, civil rights leader, and author. And it's called the Sage Warrior Retreat, which is the name of my 2024 album and her 2024 book, in which she really explores, and we really explore, this idea of the connection between the spiritual and political. Sage Warrior is a translation of this concept in Sikhi called Sant Sipahi, the sage warrior. So what does it take if spirituality is your thing, then from a spiritual level, but even if spirituality is not your thing, from kind of like an inner strength level, to be up for being a freedom fighter and sort of like warrior for justice and liberation in these times? And how can our movements for justice and liberation be guided by principles of love? And I think it's going to be really beautiful. And it's at the Kripalu Center in the Berkshires, mid-April.
Secret Planet presents Sangat this Monday, March 16th, featuring Sunny Singh. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. I hope you still play that really tiny trumpet.
I take that on the road and I don't have gigs because it's smaller to carry around. The trumpet's already small, but that's really small.
As of broadcast, there are still tickets available to see Sangat at the Parlor Room. You can find tickets at parlorroom.org. Now we'll hear how organizer Jim Olson is cramming 10 venues with 60 artists of a multitude of genres over 3 days in Northampton for the Back Porch Festival. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. I sent an ask yesterday for a media pass, and we'll see if I get it.
I mean, I bet half the people there are bloggers, and pretty much anybody can say they need a media pass, right?
Sort of, but like I'm on a website.
Yeah, you can prove it. You're on NPR podcasts. Come on.
I'm on a website, and my show is arts and culture. So this is literally what I do. But like, they're going to go, but in New England, I'm like, those people come here too.
Right. I tried years ago through 93.9 The River to get a Red Sox press pass. And it
Didn't fly?
Fell on deaf ears. I really just wanted it as an excuse to go to the games for free, but didn't work out.
You know.
Not this weekend, not next weekend, but the weekend after, March 27th, 28th, and 29th, is the return of the Back Porch Festival. 60 artists, 12 venues, sprawling lovingly all over downtown Northampton. And with us is the man behind the Back Porch Festival and the Back Porch Radio Show on the aforementioned 93.9 The River, our
best
alma
listening
mater.
on a Sunday morning.
Best Sunday morning radio show, apart from whatever is on Sunday mornings here on NEPM, which I don't even know.
Yeah, no, I said what I
Ooh,
said.
careful there.
Jim Olson.
Get yourself in trouble.
Welcome back to the show, Jim Olson.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
We'll say that Khalees has to miss the Back Porch broadcast that we're going to do on Friday, March 27th, because you'll be at another music
I
festival
will be at a
in
different
Tennessee
music
called
festival.
Big Ears.
Yes.
But we will be there live from 3 to 4 from the Iron Horse with some of the folks from the Back Porch Festival.
And I'm bummed because there's some really good people coming to the Back Porch Festival.
Yeah.
I had to miss Margaret Glaspie when she was at Big Ears, and I'm going to miss her now that she's coming.
She's just going to all the different places
Back
that
Porch
you're
Festival.
not.
I am just doomed to never see her on stage.
Jim Olson, who are you excited about, particularly this year for the Green River Fest? I mean, for the Back Porch Festival. Oh, mental slip, because you started the Green River Festival too.
Yeah. I'm excited for all of it, as I always am. But I think we're doing a really exciting collaboration with Secret Planet this year at 33 Holly.
Yes.
Topping that bill is Chuck Prophet and his Cumbia Shoes.
Nice.
Which was my favorite show I saw in the past couple years. They came to the Iron Horse a while back. Chuck Prophet, great indie rocker who, during the pandemic, discovered a cumbia band and have this sort of unforeseen collaboration. And it's just so much fun, so danceable, so great.
I was a fish in the ocean. Wish I was a bird in the sky.
So that's one set I'm looking forward to. But
Yeah.
man, there's a lot of stuff.
One of the ones that I am not looking forward to, but I'm somehow being dragged to, and I mean that as a double entendre, is Bertha. Tell us about Bertha and how I'm going to be involved in this, I guess.
Well, Bertha bills themselves as the only drag Grateful Dead cover band in the world.
And Grateful Dead cover bands are a drag in general, as is the Grateful Dead themselves. But this band does Grateful Dead in drag.
In drag.
Yeah.
In reality, they are some of Nashville's best bluegrass and country musicians, all sort of middle-aged folks.
Which is young in the Grateful Dead world.
There we go.
Facts.
A couple years ago, when Tennessee was trying to institute an anti-drag rule, just banning drag statewide, they got together and did a show at a club in Nashville that instantly sold out. And somebody from the Newport Folk Festival was there and loved the show, invited them instantly to go to Newport Folk Festival, and suddenly Bertha became a real band. They had no career aspirations of doing this until the demand just got huge, because not only is it super fun and cute to see a bunch of musicians in drag playing the Grateful Dead, but they are really good at what they do musically. It's really, for my money, maybe the best Grateful Dead tribute band out there.
So, I mean, the thing that's fun about drag a lot of times is the camp that comes with it. Do they bring the camp to the Grateful Dead music?
They do, in a really cool way.
Uh-huh.
For one thing, it's a lot of female voices, which you don't usually hear in a Grateful Dead cover
Right.
band. And a lot of dancing.
I wonder if they'll convert me. I will be introducing them in drag. I think I'm going to go with Glinda because it's just prettier.
Really? Bring back the AOC dress.
Ah, I do have the AOC drag. I didn't even think about that. I might need to get a
Bring
better.
back
I need to get a different wig if I'm going to do that.
the
I do
AOC
have,
dress.
I do have the dress that AOC wore. It's not the actual dress, to the Met Gala where it says "Tax the Rich" on the back.
There we are.
Yes.
Yeah, I have-
Well, they are playing two sets, so maybe you could do like...
am I introducing both?
Well, if you got two outfits.
We're talking about the Back Porch Festival, which is happening all over downtown Northampton. 60 artists, 12 venues, March 27th, 28th, and 29th, with the festival founder and host of the Back Porch Radio Show, Jim Olson.
Jim, talk about moving this festival to not be quite so centralized, because it's spread out all over Northampton in a way that I appreciate going to big ears, because that festival is set up much the same, where like Ramble Passes take you around the city to see some of the music from afar and near that is happening as part of the festival. And that wasn't the way that it was for a number of years.
You know, coming out of the pandemic, there just wasn't very many venues in downtown Northampton. And it was always my intention. I always wanted to be walkable, and it's still walkable. It might be a little bit of a long walk from 33 Holly to the Academy of Music, but
I want
Not
those
that
people
long.
to see what I do to get to Millen Mine from like the First Congregational Church in Knoxville. It is 1.5 miles and I make it in 8 minutes.
Or like New Orleans, like has all these places that are a little bit all over the city, but you got to get your steps in.
yeah, in that walk, you get to see all of downtown Northampton and experience it. And that's part of it, is to include the whole city. That's our intention, is to include the entire city in this festival. You know, we do it at a time of year where it's a little slow. It's not really winter anymore, but it's not really spring either.
If you go to First Night Northampton, which is amazing, and it's all over the city too, it's often cold, and you're like trying to run from venue to venue to get into the next warm place. But when it's the Back Porch Festival, which is now in what year are we in?
This is the 12th.
Yeah.
But the fourth year of this format of it being
Like all
kinda
over the city,
all
yeah.
over the
And I mean,
city.
it last couple times the weather has been pretty good, and it's fun walking around in the springtime and seeing all this great music around Northampton.
That's the idea.
Jim, we talked about Bertha, and we talked about Chuck Prophet and the Cumbia Shoes. Tell us some other musical highlights that you think people should not miss.
Low Cut Connie.
Yeah.
Who I believe is going to be part of the broadcast live on Friday the 27th of this show.
If you haven't seen Low Cut Connie, I'm not even sure quite how to describe it. It's
Jerry Lee Lewis without the complicated cousin issues
okay. There you go.
That's, yeah.
that we know of.
Wow.
He plays a beat up upright piano of about Jerry Lee Lewis's vintage.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just play it, it is his stage as well. He'll
Yeah.
spend half the show on top of it, climbing all over it. Wild performer who loves to get the audience super involved. That's actually after Bertha on Friday night. That's our late night set on Friday night. I think that's going to be just a wild combination. And, you know, at Back Porch Fest, we love to bring great music all over the city, and there's some tough choices. Friday night, you have to choose from a Mardi Gras party with the Rebirth Brass Band and a fantastic new band from New Orleans called Sally Baby's Silver Dollar.
Who have been by the show as well. We
They're
love them.
amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing. We love
They
them
just
so
did
much.
a Tiny Desk, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. We love them so much that we booked them for 2 days, and they're going to be playing 3 different times at the festival.
Nice.
So everybody will get a chance to see them. So you got your Mardi Gras party Friday night. You got Bertha at the Academy of Music. You've got Willie Carlisle and Low Cut Connie at the Iron Horse. And you've got 8 other venues to choose from. You know, you buy a Ramble Pass, you get a button, and you can go to pretty much all of it. The only stuff you can't go to with just a Ramble Passes are the Academy shows at night.
Talk about some of the local people that are also playing as part of the Back Porch Festival, because part of this is that, again, like, we're seeing folks from like all around the world come to Northampton to play, but it's also about elevating the folks that are here that are playing really well too.
It's true. That's a part of our mission as well. About half of the lineup consists of locals, and it's everyone from, known quantities of bands you love, like the Winter Pills and Lonesome Brothers, to a lot of adventurous stuff. We have a new venue this year called Hayes on Main Street. It used to be the Majestic. We said, would you guys like to be part of this? You want to book a couple bands? And I think they booked 13, 14 bands.
Wow.
To play over
Good
the
for
3
them.
days. And honestly, they're all locals, and most of them I don't even know who they are.
Nice. But you never know. Jim Olsen could stumble in there and, like he's done so many times before, discover the next big act. You could add Josh Ritter to that list. You could add Lake Street Dive to that list. Jim Olsen also behind Signature Sounds Records, which many of these artists have had a relationship with or are currently on.
The idea is go out there, check stuff out, go to places you've never been before, see bands you've never seen before, and, see some favorites along the way, too.
We also have some recent Grammy winners with I'm With Her, who every year seem like win some sort of Grammy. But if people aren't familiar with I'm With Her, tell us about that group.
It's a trio of great women artists, all of whom record as solo artists. Eva O'Donovan, who we remember from Crooked Still. It's Sarah Jarosz. She's played the festival before. And it's Sarah Watkins from Nickel Creek and the Watkins Family Hour. And together they're I'm With Her, incredible harmonies, beautiful songwriting. They just put out their second album yet and instantly nominated and won Grammys and all kinds of other awards. They're our headliner on Sunday night. It's been sold out for almost a month and a half now.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah.
If you didn't get tickets already, you missed that one.
We're trying to talk them into doing a little something else somewhere at the festival so people might get a chance to see them.
Oh,
So.
interesting.
So keep an eye out for like notifications, things.
I'm trying to get them to get up early Sunday morning to be on the radio show.
Because there will be a Back Porch Radio Show on the Back Porch Radio Show on 93.9 The River on Sunday, and this show will be broadcasting live from the Back Porch Festival on the Friday afternoon.
And the live one on Sunday often also has performances from some of the other performers that were part of the lineup who have either performed earlier or are performing later that day. It's
Yes.
really fun.
Jim tries to talk people into getting up at an ungodly hour and playing music on a Sunday morning.
It's not that
difficult
ungodly.
conversations.
Yeah.
9 o'clock is not ungodly.
For rock and rollers, it is.
It's not. Says the person who also had to bring her guitar inside the building today because it's too cold outside.
Yeah.
There's so many good names on this. It's a wide breadth of what Americana really is, like from roots to blues to like some funky stuff. Like Delvin Lamar organ trios on this list. They're fantastic. It's such a cool time.
It's not too late to get the Ramble passes for March 27th through 29th. Some of the other Academy shows are sold out. What about the other Academy shows?
There's still tickets available to the other 2 headline shows. On Saturday night, we're paying tribute to the band Old and in the Way, which was Jerry Garcia's bluegrass band.
Which I actually like.
The 70s. And Peter Rowan, an original member, and Sam Grissman, who's David Grissman's son, getting together with a bunch of special guests. And that show is close to selling out, but there are still some tickets available. Still some tickets available for Bertha, and definitely still tickets available for the Ramble passes for the whole weekend. And this year, for the first time, just for folks who might be a little further afield, we have hotel packages available. Spend the weekend in Northampton, sample our great city, and have a good time.
This weekend, Jim Olsen, is the Oscars. And Signature Sounds and Our Valley have an interesting and amazing Oscar connection that I don't know if everybody really has heard about yet. Can you tell us how one of your artists is going to the Oscars on Sunday?
Well, the legendary Chris Smither, who we've worked with for about 20 years, whose career spans 60 years, was asked and accepted a role in a small indie film, a short film, called The Singers. And it's
Not to be confused with Sinners, which is also nominated.
Exactly. Exactly. He was not in Sinners. It's essentially about old guys in a dive bar. It's 18 minutes long. It's a short film, and it got nominated for an Academy Award. Chris is going to get the tux on and walk the red carpet on Sunday night. You know, we've been trying as his record label to get him a Grammy for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's never happened. I've always feel bad about that. He makes one little movie. And there he is on the red carpet.
It's a great movie. It's like a singing contest in a bar. If you like singing, Chris Smither, music, dive bars, and have 18 minutes to spare, it's your movie.
And it's free on Netflix.
Or you can go to Amher Cinema, where they're showing all the shorts right now in one fell swoop, so you can see them all before the awards
Which is a
happen.
great night of entertainment.
Yeah.
I always love the short film theater run that happens.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to Signature Sounds at the Academy Awards this Sunday with Chris Smither. And we're looking forward to coming to broadcast live from the Back Porch Festival on Friday the 27th. The Back Porch Festival all over downtown Northampton, March 27th, 28th, and 29th. Bertha, The Grateful Drag, Peter Rowan, Sam Grisman Project, and I'm With Her headlining with about 50 some odd other artists all throughout town.
I just got to ask about this because I just saw it. Steve Sanderson's hosting a Bob Weir sing-along.
Why, yes, he is.
You got all the old morning show hosts from 93.9 The River involved in the Grateful Dead somehow, didn't you? We're going to get Rachel Maddow up there for some.
Oh my gosh.
I had to twist his arm a little bit, but there we go.
You can find out all the information about the festival at backporchfest.com. Jim Olson, looking forward to that broadcast, and always a pleasure to have you here on the show.
Always a pleasure to get here.
And there's always a bit of Americana that you will probably like. So if you've pigeonholed it, go and find some bit of it that you'll enjoy. On the next Fabulous 413, we'll do 2 looks at the upcoming Oscars with Walter Robinson, one of the reporters highlighted in the Best Picture winner spotlight, will make an appearance in Greenfield next week. And we'll get into our predictions about winners with news editor Elizabeth Roman and ringer for picking Enzo Belmonte. Plus at Thunderdome at State Street Fruit Store, Deli Wine and Spirits. I'm Khalees Smith. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.